Hey everyone, Joe here, and today's guest on What's Cracking is Dan Henk. And this is something that's been a while in the making. So I'm so glad to have you here, Dan. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And we've got a lot of things to talk about, from cosmic horror to your new anthology, The Joke is on Mankind, which is coming out soon. And I have to,
Hopefully 2 months.
hopefully 2 months.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Your new anthology, The Joke is on Mankind. Could you give me a lead into what that's going to be about, the anthology wise? Is it interlinked stories, or is it kind of the same theme, or what?
Sure. It's I do a bunch of author conventions and I know a lot of people, and I do a podcast too and I interview authors,
Cool.
some like indie authors, some like bigger authors. And I hit a lot of them up and I was like, hey, I'm doing an anthology and I don't have like Jeff Bezos money, but how about
Yeah.
this? I do illustrations for every story you give me. So I'll give you one of my original illustrations, which I mean they often sell for anywhere from $300 to $500.
Right.
They're like, oh yeah, cool. So I had people actually asking me to be in my anthology just to get an illustration. But yeah, so they're all like kind of along the lines of like Twilight Zone or Tales from the Crypt, or one of the like little creepy, a little spooky, not too much like gore, splatter, or anything
Right.
like that. But just I was looking for strong stories.
Well, that's amazing when you're saying that. I'm like, man, I totally would have. If someone said, like, I'm going to do an individual artwork for you if you give me a story for anthology, I'm like, that's a fair trade. Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
here you go. Which one do
Yeah.
you want? That's an amazing thing. And I think you hit on the head. So you're taking this anthology and you had people on your podcast. What's your podcast called?
Skull Sessions with Dan Henk.
I love it.
Skull Session is like an old English term for like a deep conversation.
Yeah, the deep, like what's cracking now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Combos, right? And so you meet.
Like the Kraken, I take it. Yeah.
I know. Like, part of the hardest thing about podcasting is like, what should I call my show? Like, I know
Yeah.
what I want to talk about, but what should we call this?
No, that's clever though. Like, what's Kraken?
I appreciate it very much. We have this, and you're meeting people, and you're saying, "Hey, you're an author. You want to, put something in an anthology." And have you ever gotten a no, like a straight out, like, "No, I don't want to do this."
No, I haven't got a no. Although I don't go, hey, will you be in my anthology? I go, hey man, do you have time? This is what I'm doing. And there's some people that are like,
Right.
hey, everybody's been nice. I've had some people that are like, hey, I'd love to do it, but I'm really busy right now. And I even
Right.
had some people say that. They're like, yeah, but I managed something. How's this? And then they'll submit it to me. And it's not like, everything you submit to me, I'm like, okay, in the book. It's like you submit to me, and I'll be I'll be like, hey man, it really didn't grab me or whatever. I try to be nice. I mean, 'cause there are people I respect. Like I kind of opened up this anthology to like all different people for submissions, and there were quite a number of people that sent me stuff I didn't like at all. So I wasn't an asshole about it. Just like, hey man, sorry, I'm gonna move on. Good luck with your story.
Right.
I went from there.
Yeah, I have a question about this because we used to do charity anthologies for Empty Hell. And sometimes when people were submitting, and it's the mix of like the good, the bad, the ugly, right? The good, like instantly in, you're awesome. The bad's kind of like, well, could you cut out some parts, or can you tweak this a bit and resend it to me? And then the ugly, which is just like, no, we just can't. Did you ever get replies to rejections? Did people actually reply to you?
No, actually, they didn't.
Really?
Like they submit it. I also run a convention. Well, I don't run. I'm part of it. It's
Right.
called the Miss Hand, and it's like a convention for like tattoo artists and authors and artists and comic book artists and stuff like that. And I was like, if you're in my anthology, the one I just opened up, I was like, if you're in the anthology, and, accept your story, you get a free booth. So quite a number of people hit me up for that. I think, in part because they were like, dude, fucking free booth. I don't
Yeah.
know if I curse here, but,
Oh, no, cursing's fine.
and I'm from New York. We hear this all the time.
Nice.
But yeah, so a number of people hit me up, and I was actually surprised that a lot of them, they just, they didn't pass the smell test. It's like you read it and you're like, it's nothing great, but you don't
Yeah.
say, hey man, I didn't like this or like that. I'm just like, hey, thanks for submitting.
You know,
Yeah,
wasn't for
but
us.
I actually hit up a number of people that were in a previous anthology of mine. I was like, "Hey, man, you want to write me a story?" Because I was trying to open it up to like a bunch of new people, and I was kind of disappointed. So I ended up only accepting one new submission.
Really?
And everyone else I knew. They may not have been in my anthology before, but I met them at author conventions and stuff.
Okay, interesting you say that. And I really love talking about this because it's like talking shop with me. And your anthology, the joke is on mankind, coming out soon. And even the convention booth, I'm like, wow, you're giving them convention space. You're giving this stuff. You're very generous. I'm going to tell you this right now. That's amazing, generous of you. I
Oh,
mean, do
thank you.
people ever just go like, oh my god, thank you? Like, did they actually know how much? Are they cognizant of how generous this is? But
Well,
you know,
I've had some people, even some like fairly big names,
right?
send me something and I'll read it and I'll talk to them about like, yeah, I'm going to do this illustration for it. Like, oh, so I take it I'm accepted. It's like, so they're very like, they're mild about it. They're very
Yeah.
humble about it. And the people that have submitted something that's like garbage, you know, I didn't say like anything negative other than I'm just not taking it, and then I never heard from them again.
Well, that's actually a good sign because sometimes our form rejection letter was kind of like, "Thank you for submitting. Unfortunately, no matter how this is written or well written or whatever, as we said, it's just not our brand of horror for right now. Keep good luck with this. Keep submitting in the future. All good pieces."
Do
And
you
some
see?
people
No
took
matter
that,
how well written, like
yeah,
I
and
didn't even click that because I was like, some were not well written. It was like, dude, you need to work on
yeah, like,
it.
every once in a while, if someone responded back in a positive way, like what was wrong with it, I'll give like, okay, you had to do this, like here's the actual editorial feedback of it. Or if I find that there are a first time author who just doesn't know much about the stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. Oh, here we go. This is how I can kind of tighten this up and beginnings and endings, right? Usually
Right.
people miss the ending and they miss beginning. It's like they have like the beginning's actually page 5. So the other 5 pages, you just cut that out. This is where you begin. Do you see that sometimes? Like people just can't land the
What I
beginning?
see, I kind of see what I call the Stephen King fallacy, which is people start out with like a strong premise and then it just goes off the rails, and you're like, "That was the ending, really?"
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And it was kind of like I love Stephen King, and there's sometimes if I have to read the book, I'll skip pages. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
I feel like
yeah,
his earlier stuff was a lot stronger.
tighter.
And then, like, after he kind of like broke big, he was kind of like, I'll just do my thing. I mean, maybe that's also when we started doing a lot of coke or whatever.
Yeah.
But then, like, I remember the final thing where I was like, I got to cut this off is I read Thinner. Thinner would have been like a great 30-page short story, but he made like a 250-page novel. He spent a whole chapter talking about toilet paper. I was like, all right, I'm out.
The funny thing is when he said thinner, I'm like, oh, that's a great short story. I actually remember it as a short story in my head, probably for the
Yeah.
same reason. Because you just keep going like this, like, oh,
Well, it should have been. It was a short
yeah.
story that he just like padded
You
out.
just kept padding out. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it. So you're talking about the production end of it. What's your big, not your big workflow issue, but what's one of the things you're like, oh, I can't wait. You just can't wait to do it. And one thing you dread. What's the one thing that says, I can't wait to put this anthology out. I can't wait to do blah. Is it the illustration part of it? Is it the weaving together the story order or what?
Well, I enjoyed the illustrations. I mean,
Right.
originally I wanted to be a comic artist, and like I interviewed with DC Comics, I interviewed with Penguin Books about doing book covers. Like none of that worked out. Like they really liked my stuff, but like I remember DC Comics were doing very bad at the time, and the movie saved them. So they only wanted superheroes. I was like, I'm out. And then Penguin Books liked my pen, but they give you like a job like once a year. I was like, you can't live in New York, doing that. But
No.
so I enjoy like whenever I read a story or I write a story, like I try to picture all of it. Like I'm
Yeah.
like going through it. So like I visualize stuff. So I love to bring it to life, like doing an illustration. I was like, you know what? There's a perfect illustration for it. I don't know. Probably The big like time's always a factor because I'm like, I got to get this out. Oh, wait. So I want to
Yeah.
do my best job, but in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head because I think people don't realize how much time and effort an anthology really is.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
sometimes if you have 20 people in it, that's 20 different egos that you're juggling all at once. And some are patient, some are not patient. And then, Amazon's going to do something to you. Book Vault is probably going to be great for you. But there's always something that's going to be like, this cover size won't fit. It's like 0.00002 pixels off. I'm like, what the
I know that it
fuck?
does that.
The
So
fuck?
you have to make it like 0.63 and it was actually
Yeah.
0.67. You're like, oh, come on.
Yeah. Like, I'm using your template. Or they'll
Yeah.
have it pass the first time. It'll go live. And then a year from now, they'll give you an email saying, oh, by the way, your cover size doesn't fit. I'm like, it fit
I
for
know.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all these little things in the back end, yeah, I agree. Like, oh man, just time wise and stuff like that. Now, you talked about you are an artist, and I see you might have some ink. Do you do tattoos?
Yeah. I own a shop here in Long Beach, New York.
Nice, nice. What got you into tattooing, man?
I was in Virginia and I was super punk rock, like blue mohawk, spiky
Yeah,
leather jacket.
cool, dude.
And I mean, this was like the late 80s, early 90s. And I just got harassed, like fake police charges, beaten up by skinheads, all sorts of stuff. So, but I really wanted to be an artist. Like my dad's super military, so like I got really high grades and got accepted to a really good art school, but I couldn't afford to take out a loan, and he wouldn't co-sign the kid out of the house moved. So
Jesus.
when I finally got on my feet and I put myself through art college, and my teacher said, "Hey, if you want to make it as an artist, you got to move to New York." So I was like, okay, so like on the like everything I owned was in a backpack. I was on a motorcycle. I just moved to New York. I had a friend who lived in Queens, and I just moved into a spare bedroom. And while I was like submitting to like DC Comics and Penguin Books and all these people, and like going to all these gallery shows and everything. And I
Right.
remember I went to Pratt had like a portfolio day, and one of the guys at Pratt, said, "Oh, you should get a job." I was like, "Well, I'm trying." He's like, "Well, I ink for DC Comics, so I'll say what's the interview." I was like, "Oh, great." So then I went for that interview, and like I told you earlier, they wanted me to do superheroes. I didn't want to do superheroes. So I had a friend of my brother's who also painted but was a tattoo artist. And he saw my stuff. He's like, that guy should learn how to tattoo. So he taught me, and I was thinking, I'll just tattoo until I get a quote real job. But then I liked it so much, and I blew up in the industry. Like at one point, I was like in every magazine. They're flying me all over the world and stuff.
Cool.
It's like I call it my 15 minutes of fame, But after that, it's kind of hard to let go of because it's like this is really working for me, and I enjoy it.
Great. And that's the thing is like we never know how life's going to take us sometimes. Artwork tremendous and like you said, you
The
can't
thing,
live off one cover a year.
yeah,
Not in New York. And you have this integrity about your art, and I think that's integrity that made you go, "I don't wanna do superheroes." And that's part of that because I know a lot of people would go, "I would draw whatever you want for a job," right? And you're like, "No, I don't wanna I'm not interested in superheroes right now." And I think that's great, and tattoos I'm not showing mine right now, I actually got long sleeves on today. And it's, like, one of my near dear to my hearts because you were saying you started out in kind of like the punks in the 80s and the 90s, like, well, Gen X as well over here. And you find that as a counterculture and tattoos used to be counterculture.
oh, definitely, yeah.
They used to be our symbolic thing and stuff like that. So you actually seeing
Like
the
only
art
bikers and low life's got them. Yeah,
that I point to my you can't see it right now. I did this. I got my first tattoo in a biker's garage,
yeah, I believe
right?
it.
Yeah. That's where it was. Where do you wanna go? It's only one dude that does it. He's we'll say in a motorcycle club, you have to go to his garage, and you
Well, a lot
sit
of
down and
places it
do it,
was illegal, so that's where we had to go.
uh, you know, back in the day, and now you're like, "I can go this and get like a slushie at a strip
Yeah.
mall." It's
Well,
changed a bit.
they make a joke like they have a meme, and it's like it used to say when you had a neck tattoo, it said I'm bad motherfucker, stay away from me. Now it means let me read you my vegan poetry.
It's true though, and you see, okay, you've seen the inks change as well. Like you've seen all these things where the inks used to like the colors. I used to get charged by the color back in the day.
Oh wow.
That's what old my stuff was. Like, yeah, exactly. Now they're like charged by the color. What do you mean? So, have you ever tattooed someone that was like, we're not going to say bad choice, but if you try to talk someone out of a tattoo, you're like,
Oh,
oh, you
all the time.
rethink this
I
one.
mean, I've been tattooing for 25 years. So
Wow.
I've run the whole gamut. Like people, like I have the craziest tattoo stories. But as far as taking somebody out, like we, tattooing has changed a lot. Like it
Yeah.
used to be, in some ways, it was a lot better because there were rules on things you didn't do. And now it's just like, kids are like, I'll do whatever. But then it was also bad because there's like a little bit of a restrictive, closed society. So like, it's gotten better and gotten worse, mixed bag. But I remember a kid came in, just turned 18, and he wanted a giant tattoo on his neck. And he wanted, I don't remember what it was, like giant letters or something. And like he's very well dressed, nice cut, slicked back hair and everything. I was like, is this for a tattoo? He's like, yes. I'm like, how old are you? He's like 18. I'm like, you don't know what you're going to do in life. We call tattoos like that job stoppers. So don't get that, right there because it's probably going to prevent you from getting future work. And so he thanked me and he left. I was at a shop. It was all like, backstabbers and whatever. Like back in those days, you had a lot of like really negative people in the industry. So
Yes.
they called the owner, and the owner comes over and he's like, Dan, I heard you turned down a tattoo. I was like, his name was Lou. And I was like, hey, Lou, well, you know that, the kid's only like 18. And I went the whole thing. And he
Yeah.
goes, fuck him, take the money. I was like, Lou, don't think like that. I
And
mean,
that's
I
exactly it.
didn't work
Yeah.
for Lou that long. I eventually went to another shop, but that's another story.
Well, I mean, right, and that's the thing. I'm thinking of a shop in Montreal right now that started because of the other shops. Not all the shops in the area, but one shop in particular was just so toxic. People left and formed their own thing
Yeah,
because
that's
it's just
actually
like that.
fairly common.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see more artists. I love when artists band together and try to do their stuff. So you said you got beaten up by skinheads or attacked by, should I say, attacked by skinheads?
No, I get beaten up.
I
I
was
have
like, no,
a
I got
broken. I've gone to the hospital a bunch of times. Like I remember when I was still living in Virginia. It's like I lived in Northern Virginia, like right by DC, and I remember there were a lot of Nazi skinheads in Virginia. I mean, DC is mostly black, so they were called sharp skinheads, which is skinheads against racial prejudice. So they have like black skinheads and like Latin skinheads and
uh,
whatever. But so, and they'd always fight with like Nazi skinheads. And I remember I went out and I came back and I was like, I don't know, 19, 18, drunk as fuck. And I come in and I was going through what I call my death rocker phase. So I had
yeah,
like, fingernails and like
yeah,
black eyeliner on. Like I looked like Glenn Danzig or something, and except for a lot skinnier.
the
So
Skinner
I'm
dancing.
walking in and there's, I was singing a punk rock squat when I was homeless. So I was singing a punk rock squat. I only lived there for like about, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month. But I was there and they were having trouble with like it was like a gang that was like mainly a drug dealing black gang called YT. So then some of those people brought in a group of skinheads to fight YT, which would, yeah, let's fight fire with fire, right?
Yeah,
But so I come walking in, and there's like a group of them around the table. I'd never seen them before. I come in drunk as fuck, and one of them sees me wearing eyeliner, and he's like, "Oh, what? You think you're a girl?" And I was like, "No, do you think you are?" And that was it. And then like I woke up later with like him, I was asleep upstairs with him on top of me, punching me in the face, and like his giant buddy sitting next to him, just in case drunk ass small me would say something. But yeah, one of many times, yeah.
Jesus, man, and that's it. And that's a weird thing because I remember a lot of the punks. It's so weird for me to see the sometimes new skinheads and a punk hang out. I'm like, that's so antithetical to me. The punks were always against like
Right.
the philosophy of Nazis and stuff like that.
Well, punks have always been against Nazis.
Yeah,
Here's the thing. So what would happen is like, it used to be there was like a whole group of skinheads that weren't racist at all. Like I said, there were black skinheads and there were
right.
Latin skinheads and whatever. So, we tried to keep that very separate because you get a lot of like oi music and like people that were like
Yeah,
just into like that culture that were not racist at all.
right.
All skinheads were like, you want to be part of a group. But that's not like punk is
Yeah.
very like individualistic, you know. But and they would fight all the time. But the thing is, what we do because everything was a small community back then. Like you didn't have like a Green Day or anything blowing it up.
No,
So
not yet.
we'd have like goth clubs, and they'd play like I don't know, like Ministry and Front 242 and like
Yeah.
Skinny Puppy and stuff like that.
Wow.
But all the hot goth girls would be there. So all the punkers went there and all the skinheads went there to try it and back on the hot goth girls.
Oh god, perfect storm, man.
Right.
Perfect storm.
And yeah, there ended up being fights, you'd get
Yeah.
jumped, all sorts of stuff. But
Oh,
that's the way it was in those days.
it really was. That reminds me of like I've been to clubs in Vegas where they had dirt floors.
Yeah, yeah.
Dirt fucking floors for a club. Yeah, I was like, because you just
Oh,
the
there were
blood was so much.
Crosshead shows.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, you from New York? You've been to CBGB, yeah?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Okay, go for it.
When I lived in DC and then I moved to New York in '98, and
Oh shit.
there was 20 Island High, which is my absolute favorite, and there was CBGB's pretty much around the corner. And
Yeah.
I ended up working at Andromeda Tattoos, which is kind of between the two of them. And so I'd go to CBGB's so often that the bouncers there, they just recognized me and waved me in. I wouldn't
Oh,
even have
cool,
to
dude.
pay.
That's cool. No, it's so weird. Okay, because it no longer exists, right?
Oh, no, it's gone. Well,
Yeah, it's gone a couple years ago.
CBGB shop in Vegas where they just like
What?
sell merchandise and stuff.
There's still wait, okay. I spent like time, we'll say like 10 years or so in Vegas. There's a CBGB shop now in Vegas?
Yeah. So Gibby, the owner, like originally he opened
Yeah.
it and he wanted to be like a country club, but it was like at the time the Lower East Side was like really dangerous. So a lot of punk bands ended up playing there, and they ended up playing there, but going, hey, we'll bring people, and like to make the money off the bar. So like we'll bring people, and so they bring people, and that kind of like kept the bar alive, and kept Stevie Jeeves alive, and then all these like famous people, like everyone from like Television and Blondie to like more
Richard
like punk
Hack.
rock
Yeah.
acts were playing there.
Yeah.
And after like when they got to the point where the lease was up, they had like a long lease, like a 30-year lease. The city said, we will, because it was such an icon of the city. The city's like, we will buy you a new spot. And Gibby was like, yeah, I've had
Oh,
it.
good.
So he just moved to Vegas and just sells like t-shirts and whatever.
Oh shit, I have to look him up now. Okay, yeah, I remember going there not as much as you, 'cause the bouncers definitely did not know me. But I remember when New York went smokeless inside the clubs, you would have to go outside of CBGBs that smoke, and yet I would see drunk punks kind of pissing in the corner.
Yeah.
The dichotomy of it was kind of like outside to smoke, indoors to piss. Sure, all good, all good.
Well, in DC, like the basically equivalent of CBGB's was called the 930 Club.
Okay,
And like I saw, I don't know how many bands there. Like Helmet, I saw Smashing Pumpkins before they were signed. I saw L7, I saw GBH, I exploited a whole bunch of people. But I remember there was smoking in that club.
yeah,
And think of CBGB's only slightly smaller, but packed with way more than the fire hazard allows you.
right.
Well, have them smoking. Like you can barely fucking breathe in there.
I bet like a wall of fucking smoke, man. It's funny when you're talking about the pumpkins before they're signed. We used to party with part of them before they were signed as well. They're like, "This is blah 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 from the Smashing Pumpkins." Like, yeah, and who cares? And I was like, "Oh, like my bad. That's on me. That's on me. Okay, got it, sir. Sure. I didn't know they'd be that big. Who knew?" Like, 'cause you have to understand when these bands first started coming out, they're touring these like the Huntridges or their small little clubs, like small, like you're saying, CBGBs, but smaller. people didn't know how big they're gonna blow up. You knew they're good, but it's always a dice it's a fucking dice roll half the time, right?
Well, I remember because I had a lot of friends who were like skaters because
Right.
skaters and punk rockers kind of went hand in hand. So I remember we listened to a lot of stuff on Sub Pop back when Sub Pop was like kind of like the indie kind of like alternative
Wow.
rock label. So that's where I first heard L7, Tad, and Nirvana. You know, and I remember Nirvana was playing at the 930 Club, and I like Nirvana because their first album Bleach had come out on Sub Pop, and that was like very hardcore and punk rock, and I was a big fan of that, and like Mudhoney. So it was all in that vein. So I went to buy tickets. They sold out, not because they were big yet, but because the headliner was Primus, and I guess Primus was big on like college radio stations. And then they blew up, and then of course they never got.
Oh man, it goes that way. So you're taking all this punk energy and all your tattoo artistry, and you're making a anthology with the joke is on mankind. Is
Right.
that kind of like energy, creative forces come together in this anthology?
Well, it's different people. So different people obviously
Right.
have different experiences. Whenever I write something, I try and like, because I hate when people write about stuff that they don't know anything about and they get it wrong. So
Yeah.
I try and take some of like my life experiences, and fortunate, unfortunate, I've had a lot. So like I'll try and bring some of that into it. And like for instance, when I was in DC and like as a drunk punk rocker, and there are all these abandoned project buildings, we go explore them. They're
Yeah.
all kind of creepy. Like we'd have to crawl over the fence and crawl in through a broken window, and
Yeah.
stuff. Then I'll write a story about like one of those, but like I'll put like a monster in there or something. But I try and
That's
base
cool.
everything off of stuff that I know.
Yeah,
But
that's amazing. And
everyone's a little
shit.
different. Yeah.
That's true, that's true, and it's always like the broken window. Sometimes it wasn't a broken window, it's a broken window now.
Exactly.
On this broken like this. Yeah, no.
Oops, I just found
Absolutely.
it like that. I don't
Oh,
know.
well, it's perfect, yeah. Oh my god, this is really fun. Okay, so the anthology, The Joke is on Mankind, it's coming out shortly. Is it gonna be on the Zon? Do you have other like, a website to push this? Where are you pushing this out?
My website, danhenk.com. Pretty simple.
Nice.
But my website will have it, but I'll have it everywhere. Quote, everywhere fine books are sold.
Fine books are sold.
So like Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, I have a million different digital platforms to be on, like Google Books and Kobo and all
Yep.
that sort of stuff.
Digital is lovely, especially nowadays. One place does it all.
But unfortunately, you don't get paid, but you get a lot of eyes on it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, "Oh, you're gonna be a millionaire." Like, you know how much
No,
downloads people have to do to get like $1 from this? You know?
they're like,
It's
you
amazing.
sold. Here's 30 cents. I'm like, what? Yeah.
I know. Yeah, it's what was like the biggest awakening thing. I don't have a book in not really. Like when you look at a book, they're like, "Oh, it's like this cost 19.95." So the author must get like about 12 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
about 12 cents if
with
you're lucky.
like with tattooing, they're like, what do you charge per hour? Oh, so you make that kind of money? I'm like, no, you know how much supplies cost, how much licensing costs.
Yeah.
I have a tattoo studio in New York, and basically the joke is you have to pay for a license to get a license because they have a sign fee. We have to be like, what business don't have a sign? But we have
Yeah.
to pay a sign fee.
That's insane. That's insane. Oh, I've seen so many knockoff signs traveling around the world. Like, I'm pretty sure that Michael Jordan did not approve the sign, but you go to
Yeah.
New York, it's like, no, you have to have this fee to have anything in front. Yeah, the fee for a fee, man. My God.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is
so the last question I'll ask today. If you can give younger, like we'll say 10 to 15-year-old you advice, what would you give? What would you say?
well, one thing that's worked for me is don't give up, but I never give up. So for good or bad, that's got me where I am. What I would tell me, my younger version of myself, is like when people tell you no, it doesn't mean a hard no. What it means is, try and resubmit because like, a lot of like, for instance, the comic artists, like, and I submitted to everyone. And
Yep.
like and like after a while, they start writing you back and like, well, this person, this character would act like this, work on this anatomy, work on this perspective, whatever. So when you're like, 17 or 18, you're like, oh man, they hate stuff. But you got to learn, they probably get like 1,000 submissions. And so what they're telling you, if you then take it and apply it and get better, they're like, oh man, this guy really listened to me. And that gets you further. The same thing with everything, with tattooing, with writing. Like, there are tons of people that have applied to a shop to apprentice, and the shop's like, yeah, no, not here. And then they keep trying again and again. Eventually, the shop's like, well, apparently this is a big thing for them. I'll give them a chance. And
Yeah.
that's what you got to
Yeah. That's brilliant advice. No is not always a hard no. It's just not right now.
do. Exactly. Yeah.
And work on your craft and always come back.
Right.
I love it. That's perfect. And Dan, you've been a fabulous guest. And the joke is on mankind anthology.
Which
Get
is
the
a love that
podcast.
quote.
I love it. You know what? I'm
He
gonna tell you
said,
this.
life is indeed comic, but the joke is on mankind.
I love it. It's perfect. It's brilliant. Dan, thank you so much. And for
All right. Thanks.
myself, Joe and Dan, we'll say goodbye, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Peace.